Welcome back to the Center for Off-Road Research, Shenanigans, and Science Technical Division, and I have a brand new front axle for the Enduro 24 that's going to be going on my speed bolt, which I'm calling it now because it's a deadbolt that's intended to go really fast. So a couple of things I'm going to do a little bit different than I did before, and in order to do this, I remembered I had to shave the back side of this off quite a bit. So I'll get a better pointer. If you don't do this, it'll actually hit the pumpkin because it sits too close. So I will shave it right to that center line all the way across here. It'll still have the outer line in the center part, but this inner portion has to go away, or else it won't have enough motion and it'll end up, the bar will hit this and stop the turning radius. Another thing these Enduro 24 axles have is a much larger screw. This is a screw that's the same size threads as a 10 scale beadlock wheel rim. I don't know which type it is. I got them at Hobbytown, I think. But anyway, those beadlock screw bolts will work in here. So I'm going to take this out, and then I'll show you how I am going to attach it this time. Of course, the second time you do something gives you a chance to figure out what you didn't like before, and another chance to do it again and do it right this time. So it wasn't wrong before, but I think I can do it better. I'll go ahead and show you the things I'm going to do now. Alright, you can see on the video that I've taken out quite a bit through the middle, and it did make it a little bit more flexible than it used to be, but keep in mind it's not a crawler anymore, it's a sand dragster, so it doesn't need to have that really stiff front bar anymore. It's the wheel's not going to experience that much torque because it's running on sand, so this is plenty adequate. It'll be strong enough for the sand drags. This crossbar steering link is important, and I'm going to remove that next by pulling this screw out. Now, the reason that link is important is because we need to mark how far over on the new link we have to drill a hole, because I don't want the tires to point in weird directions. So I'm going to put these together and make a mark right there where that center of the hole is, and then I'll make a new hole there so that I can properly orient this these pivot, I don't know what you call these, the steering knuckles. Once I'll get those properly aligned here by keeping that same length on the new steering link, and then I'll just cut off the excess. And right there you can see the scratch mark that I made at that point, and maybe you can't, there it is. That's where the hole is going to go through for the new screw. I'm going to mount this screw up a little bit different than it used to have, and it's no longer going to have the pivot ball on this end. This is a way I've found to make a new screw hole into plastic. Works pretty good. And what I'm going to do is, this is a little screw from an Emax servo, and it's tiny, very thin. And I'm going to get that red hot, and it'll take a couple tries trying to burn through this, but I'm just going to burn a hole right straight through that, and then a regular SpeedCX24 screw will be able to screw into that and fit tight. And I'm going to wind up finishing the hole with my body reamer, and the screw should be able to get plenty of purchase on that, so I'm not worried about it. And I'll show you how I'm going to hook a small screw into a big hole. I have put that sliver of Lexan that I cut through the hole along with the screw from the SpeedCX24, and it now holds in there just fine and shouldn't come out. And I've got my modified SpeedCX24 steering bar that now goes straight across the front of the Enduro 24 axle. From here, I'm just going to take a screw and run it up from the bottom of this into the steering link itself, and the screw will just pivot inside of this. It doesn't need a pivot ball within there, but it'll be fine. And then I'll cut the remainder off that we don't need. Okay, right here I have an SCX24 screw, and as you can see, it does slide pretty easy in there, and it will also pivot easily. So this is why I don't need a pivot ball here. And I'm just gonna screw it up into this hole that we made previously, and I'll go ahead and cut that excess off before I clamp it down. I'll just sort of clip that end off. Doesn't have to be real exact. And there it goes. Now I always save all the pieces, as you know. Who knows when we'll want to have this later for a different project, but I guarantee at some point I will. So I'll put that little end back together and then shove it into a parts bin somewhere, and I'll use that on a future project. I have a perfectly functional Enduro 24 axle with a SCX24 steering link on it. I may grind into this a little more because as you can see, it wouldn't have worked if we hadn't have shrunk the size of that steering bar, but it's still hitting the pumpkin, so I may grind into that just a little bit deeper still. We'll find out. Maybe it's enough already. But the next thing is figuring out how to match this up to there, and how to make it all like each other. What you see here is the steering. In order to have the horn vertical, it has to be offset a bit to the passenger side. Well, I don't like that, so I'm going to figure out a different way. I'll probably stretch this drag link here so that I can put that straight in the middle and not have the steering already cranked far left like it is right now. So simple as that. Right, I've added a deadbolt front upper suspension link, and it's too long, but that's okay. Too long isn't a problem. What I'm going to do is figure out the point where it needs to have the pivot ball. So that pivot ball is going to be moved over here, and what I'll do is I'll just cut out the amount that I don't need and sort of fire splice it together. I don't know why that wouldn't be a good option, but we're going to try it. And it has to be pretty perfect, because with these crappy AS1 servos, there is no indexing the servo arm. It just is where it is, and that's due to the servo saver. So I'm going to power this just to have it centered before I even begin this. Alright, I plugged it into the ESC, powered it, centered the trim on the controller, and now I know that is where center is. So I know now when I line this up where I need to make that mark for the pivot hole on the arm. and conveniently it's right where that line is, so I don't think that Axial did that on purpose, but that's a pretty good line. So I need to take out the difference between where the pivot ball is now and that line. So I'll measure that distance. I'll cut that much of it out of the link and then get the ends of it hot and sort of splice it back together. And you can see here where I've scored the link. I'm just going to use this razor knife and chop that off. I'm also going to chop it off here, and then I'll join this piece to right there, and it will be the exact length that I need it to be. Alright, here goes a little fire weld. Get both of those ends hot. Gotta be a little faster. That hurts though. It took a lot of tools to make this piece right here, so that explains the mess on my table. It took a little bit more to get the strength right and the length right, but I do think I have it. And the way I ended up having to fire weld this was to basically catch the ends of this thing on fire simultaneously, and then while they're still burning, stick them together and blow on it to put the flame out. But it seems like it worked, and I think I got it close enough to center that I'll be able to fix any misalignment of the indexing with the trim. So I think it's pretty close. If not, well, I'll make another one later, but for now we're gonna go with it. So I think that's pretty good. So I'll just have to, I think what I'm gonna do to make this part fit with that is I'll cut a piece of black plastic and shave this flat on the bottom, and then just have that sit on top of the block so that I have the proper height above the axle. It needs to be centered so it'll go up to the frame rails, but I don't anticipate any problem at all with that. And I'll show you a quick and easy mod for your servos. Just clip the ears off of them like that and just taper them. Now that'll slide between your servo rails a lot easier. That was cheap, easy mod. That's all for tonight. I gotta go to bed.